heart. But the reality is it's very difficult to live from a heart that is burdened by pain, that is burdened by trauma, that is burdened by a lack of confidence, a lack of worthiness, a lack of feeling love, a lack of being able to receive that love. You see, oh my goodness, this is gonna be kind of a, not a wild concept, but I need you to stay with me on this video. If you're really gonna capture the heart and the essence of what I'm gonna share with you about why we're failing in relationships in this modern age. And it's not like any of the advice you've ever heard of. And it's something that I learned very early, very painfully. And if I can share with you the heartbeat of why this is happening, then maybe you can avoid heartbreak. Maybe you can do differently what everybody else is doing so that you don't keep repeating the same cycle that you see everybody else repeating and failing. And maybe you've just failed and you're like, I am freshly wounded and sitting with the pain, and Erica, I don't want to go through that again. Well, it's going to be kind of a wild ride, and like I said, I learned this lesson very early, and I want to share it with you. And listen, if you're that person and you're like, Erica, I really need a change in my life, things have got to work differently for me, may I encourage you to do my free video course, Become the Damn Hero. I've had so many people write to me who are going through a challenging time, or they just need that encouragement. They need to be lifted up. They need to be inspired. They need to be motivated. I highly encourage you to Become the Damn Hero, because you are the hero, my darling. I was 18 years old. Every great story. I think I just spit out some snot on myself. That was cute. So I was 18 years old and I got married really, really young. And I'm telling you this story because this is what I have learned and what I've been observing. And this is a message I've been sitting on for a really long time. And I can't tell you, I mean, there's lots of reasons why I haven't talked about this so directly and so openly. And one of the reasons I haven't shared it is because in my mind, I just haven't believed that the planet, the world, we've been ready to hear what I'm about to say to you, but I believe we are now. So I was 18, I got married, and when I remember the person that I married, I remember saying to my mom, I said, Mom, but I don't love this person. And I come from, back then, you know, my parents, our family was really religious, and this person was super charismatic, and they spoke at my parents' church and was super dynamic and moved and motivated everyone. But as I spent time with this individual, I was like, I am not feeling it. And I'll never forget the words that my mom said. She was like, you're just used to those worldly boys, which were guys who were not Christians. And I was like, and I'm 18, so I didn't have the wherewithal to really say what I was experiencing. And then it was just kind of one of those things of like, this is who we feel God has for you. And how can you argue with what God has for you? And so that was kind of my journey. I'll never forget telling the person, I said, listen, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And I remember praying to God and crying, God, you have to make me love this person. Because I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it that way. Obviously now, you and I sitting here, we know that that is no way to enter a relationship. But when you're 18 years old, you're very religious, you believe that God is controlling and that He calls all the shots, and that you just be obedient to everything that He says, which does not sound like a very loving relationship, then that's what you do. And when you don't understand things like trauma bonding and all of the things that I know now, I didn't know that shit then. So I got into marriage. And so this is when my life changed. And I'm going to tell you why relationships keep failing. I got a hold of a book. I was in a really dark place. I was questioning things in life that were not making sense. I was watching everybody around me and I was like, I don't want what these people have in their lives. I want something different. And I got a hold of this book called Waking the Dead. And the premise of the book is it's the glory of God for man's heart to be fully alive. That is actually what brings God glory, is for our heart to be alive. I've never heard this concept ever. And I'm probably sure you've never heard this concept either, because we get taught a lot of wrong things from either religion or even well-intentioned people who just don't know the heartbeat of God, who are following out of obedience, but they actually have never intimately gotten to know God. And so they give a lot of bad advice that unfortunately ruins a lot of people's lives. One of the good things that my dad did teach me was, Arica, always have a relationship with God for yourself. You have to know God's voice for you. And that has been my saving grace. Now, fast forward to I finally get to know my heart. I realized, like, all along, this is not the person I should have ever been with. We were not suited for each other. We had a lot of common trauma involved, and there was a lot of trauma bonding going on in our relationships. And there's a great book, if you have one of those relationships, it's called Betrayal Bonding. I highly recommend it, because this becomes a cycle. Okay, so I go on this journey to figure out what it is that Arica's heart wants. And I have spent my life living life out of this one quest. What is it that makes my heart come fully alive so that I can bring glory to God? This is where I believe that relationships are going wrong, why they're failing, but there is good news in this, and there's hope. So a lot of you might be hearing right now that relationships are falling apart because of technology. We have too much choice. We just don't know what it means to be committed to a loving relationship. And here's the thing. In hindsight, there's a lot of truth to what's being said, but they're not the whole truth. And this is what I believe to be true. I believe that the majority of us have lived our life very circumstantially. We've lived our lives out of trauma. We live life out of societal expectations and what people or family is expecting out of us. And with all of those expectations, with all of those pressures, with all that trauma, guess what gets put on the back burner? Our hearts. Guess what we never hear from? Our hearts. Guess what we have no relationship with? Our hearts. And so we're choosing people out of pain. We're choosing people out of circumstances, maybe lack of money. We're choosing people out of lack of acceptance. We're choosing people because it's the time and I'm 30 years old, I'm 40 years old, it's time to get married, so I just choose someone. Or society says, I did everything I was supposed to do. I got the job, I went to college, I bought the house, and now it's time to get married. And so we get pushed into these relationships that we have no business being in, and this is a huge reason why relationships are falling and failing right now, is because we're not choosing them from the heart. But the whole premise of relationship, the whole premise of love, is two people choosing one another from the heart. But you cannot choose someone from the heart when the heart is filled with trauma, when the heart is filled with pain, when the heart is filled with lack of worthiness, with lack of self-acceptance, believing that you are not a good person. So you need somebody else to come into your life to validate who you are, to make you a good person. You see, my friend, these are not the reasons why we get married. These are not the reasons why we get into relationship. The real premise for relationship is because of love. Because when we're with that person, our hearts come alive in unity. And does it require commitment? Absolutely. Do we have too much choice right now? Absolutely. There's millions of reasons, right? But here's what I believe is going on. And this is probably not what you're hearing right now, but I want to tell you what's going on. I believe that our world has come so far, and we've only evolved with the amount of information, the amount of experiences that we've been exposed to. But now more than ever, we're being exposed to things like the supernatural realm, the 5D. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about narcissism. We're talking about vulnerability. All of this is really good information. These are really good concepts that we are being exposed to if we can integrate them into our hearts. You see, I do believe that we are going through a huge awakening right now, but it's not what people are thinking. This is an awakening of the heart. We've lived too much of our lives out of trauma. We've lived too much of our lives out of expectations. We've lived too much of our lives based out of societal pressures of what we've been pushed and brainwashed into thinking and what we should be doing. But this is a revolutionary of the heart. Things that are falling apart in people's lives and their relationships right now are part of a divine orchestration to help us awaken to the fact that we can no longer live out of pressure. We can no longer live out of forced circumstances, but we must live life from the heart. If we are ever to be fully alive, it has to be a heart journey. And so this is why for so long I've been talking to you guys about personal development. And yeah, I talked about it through sex, through dating, through relationships, whatever I could to speak to your heart. But the reality is it's very difficult to live from a heart that is burdened by pain, that is burdened by trauma, that is burdened by a lack of confidence, a lack of worthiness, a lack of feeling loved, a lack of being able to receive that love. You see, if you and I are going to fully awaken, if we're ever going to become fully alive from the heart, we must go through the heart. We can't avoid the heart any longer. You see, we've danced and we've paraded ourselves with logic. We have glorified logic. It has become our God. We have been enslaved to logic and willpower. And those two make terrible masters. But when we don't live from the heart, those two things become our dictators in life. And we wonder why we're so unfulfilled. We wonder why we're depressed. We wonder why we're anxious. We wonder why life is just never enough. That even if we do achieve our goals, it's never enough. Why? Because we're not living from the heart. And so any of my invitations to work with me is always an invitation for you and I to work through the heart. And listen, I know that this is a very foreign concept for many people, which is why I invite you to work with me, which is why I invite you to do a course like Become the Damn Hero, or to coach with me, or to do one of my online programs like Vulnerability or Boundaries, because these are the things, these are the tools that we use to start getting to work so that we can remove all of the gravel. If you can imagine that there's a building that collapses and all the rubble falls through, and under all that rubble is you, is your heart. You see, my work and what was happening right now on the planet is it's time to come in and excavate and remove all of those barriers, all of that pain, all of that trauma you've been through, all that unworthiness that you've been feeling and carrying all of your life. You see, this is an opportunity to begin to heal those things so that you can remove that rubble, so that you can be free, so that you can breathe and actually live from the joyous place of being alive in your heart. So why are relationships failing? Because we are going through awakening. Because people, yes, because of choice, because of becoming conscious of their trauma, because of realizing that they are living a life that they actually didn't wholeheartedly choose. People are awakening to that. Is it messy? Yes. The journey of the heart is messy, and I don't care what anyone says. And it's why probably most people who are cowards avoid that journey, because it is messy. It's not a linear path. It is a messy path, but it's a beautiful and glorious path if you so and choose to embark upon the journey of going through the heart. So yeah, right now everything looks like a mess because people are waking up in their own ways, and it's not pretty and it's not nice. And are people getting hurt in the process? Yes. We are hurting ourselves because we're finally waking up and removing, when you get a bunch of rubble on you, guess what? Bones get broken. Yes, we are doing stupid things as we continue to awaken to our trauma. But may this be a journey that as we awaken, as we heal, that we eventually stop hurting one another, but most importantly, stop hurting ourselves. We cannot give out what we don't have. So this is a journey about us recovering our hearts so that we can have a prosperous life. We can live life from the heart. We can pursue life from the heart and not so much from the logic. Not so much from expectations, but what actually makes us feel free. I would love to know in the comment section what your thoughts are about this. I would even love to know what questions you have, because this is a pretty big, broad topic, and I've said a lot in this. So if you want some specifics to this, I want to hear what you want to know, and I want to hear your experience. Have you gone through this journey where things have fallen apart? Do you feel like you are in the process of an awakening? Because I do believe that the planet is going through it. I think it's scary for a lot of people because they don't know what's going on. But I believe that a lot of spiritual leaders, a lot of light workers are very acutely aware of what's going on. We have had to go through our own dark nights of the soul, the valleys of the soul, so that we too can have the rubbish removed off of us so that we can reclaim our hearts and guide you on the same journey. So know this, that though it may look messy, though there may be despondency, that hope is always there, that the power of love is always stronger and greater and far more magnificent than any confusion you may have, and that love will always bring clarity. We are coming into a place where things will begin to clear out, but right now we are going through the mess of it. And as we go through the mess of it, we need each other now more than ever. We need love now more than ever. But know this, my darling, that in this moment right now, that you're loved, that even if there's rubbish, what am I trying to say? Rubbish? What is the word? Tell me in the comment section. I'm messing up the word here, but in the midst of this awakening, it can feel lonely. It can feel confusing. It can feel crazy. But know this, that in this season, in this time, that love will never abandon you, that you are not abandoned, that you are not alone, and that there is always victory to be had after every battle. I hope that this video has supported you, and make sure that you subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you very soon in one of my new videos. You take care, babe.